Again, good morning. My name is Bill Johnson. I'm the former director of the Palm Beach County Division of Emergency Management. I serve as the Florida Emergency Preparedness Association representative on the Governor's Hurricane Conference Program Committee, and I'm your host for this morning. I want to give you a warm welcome back. It's been a while. Welcome. It's just been amazing to see all of you folks again. It's been 3 long years, and I see all kinds of folks here that we saw just 3 years ago, and it's been almost like one big hug. So I'm really, really glad that everybody's here. Welcome again to the general session of the 36th Annual Governor's Hurricane Conference. Welcome back to Palm Beach County, the best of everything. I'd like to ask now everyone if you would please rise for the presentation of the colors by the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue Department Honor Guard. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Ava Neary, a senior majoring in vocal music attending the Alexander Dreyfus School of the Arts. She will sing us the national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Please be seated. Many thanks go to the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue Department, Honor Guard, and Ms. Ava Neary, Palm Beach County School District's Alexander Dreyfus School of the Arts. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Mayor of Palm Beach County, the Honorable Robert Weinroth. Mayor Weinroth was elected to the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners in 2018 and was recently elected by his fellow board members as mayor. He is a longtime resident of Boca Raton with an extensive background in business, public service, and community involvement. In 2014, Mayor Weinroth was elected to the Boca Raton City Council, where he served as deputy mayor and CRA vice chair during his 4-year tenure. Mayor Weinroth brings a broad background as an executive and general counsel in insurance, finance, and healthcare industries to his public service. He currently serves as chair of the Palm Beach County Transportation Planning Agency, a member of the Business Development Executive Board, the Value Adjustment Board, the Solid Waste Authority Governing Board, the Florida Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council, the Florida Hate Crime Coalition, and the National Association of Counties Transportation Steering Community and Urban Affairs Policy Committees. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present to you the Honorable Mayor Robert Weinroth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill, just like I wrote it. Well, good morning, everybody. Week. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right, there we go. As Palm Beach County Mayor, and on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, I welcome you to the 36th Annual Governor's Hurricane Conference. We are delighted that you will be spending a few days here in Palm Beach County. We're pleased to be hosting the Governor's Hurricane Conference for the 4th year, and we are looking forward to hosting it again for another 4 years. Besides bringing a wealth of training and awareness to our community, this conference will have an overall economic impact of approximately $2.5 million for our county, and I know our county administrator loves to hear those numbers. You have booked more than 3,000 room nights for this week, and registration exhibit numbers are well ahead of last year. You have come from all over, and attendees are coming from 29 states, 2 foreign countries, and 65 of the 67 counties here in Florida. Within this year's With this year's attendance, the Governor's Hurricane Conference carries on its reputation as the largest tropical cyclone conference in the United States. Palm Beach County is one of the most special places in the nation. I know that because I live here. Because of our great weather, gorgeous beaches, environmentally friendly parks, and open spaces, it is a tourist mecca, snowbird sanctuary, and a thriving sports tourism destination, hosting 4 Major League Baseball teams at 2 spring training stadiums. Tourism is an important aspect of the economy of our county, and protecting Florida's visitors is as important as protecting our year-round residents. The Palm Beach County Tourist Development Council reported a strong tourist recovery from the pandemic-impacted 2020 and 2021. Here in Palm Beaches, we have more than 7.9 people visiting in 2021, just shy of our record in 2019 of 8.2 million visitors. Visitations from domestic and Florida staycation markets continues to be strong. Direct visitor spending accounted for $5.5 billion in 2021, with total record impact of economic impact to our county of $7.8 billion. Leisure and hospitality currently employs 89,000 individuals servicing our industries here in Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County is among the fastest growing areas in the country. With the growth has come explosive residential and commercial development near coastal areas. This growth and development has occurred during a period of relative calm. But Palm Beach County has a storied history of intense hurricanes, tornadoes, violent lightning storms, flooding, droughts, and wildfires. Francis, Jean, Wilma, Faye, Matthew, and Irma all left indelible imprints in Palm Beach County. All of these storms added their contributions to the county's continuing challenge to be ready and resilient. Stronger Together, the theme of this year's conference, recognizes the challenge we all face preparing hurricane season while off an unprecedented pandemic. The last 2 years have seen many changes within our disaster preparedness world. There are issues with enough space at shelters, changes in business climate, and one of the biggest issues we will face in the future, thousands of new residents who don't know what a hurricane even is. We are proud of our emergency management program and the capabilities of an entire disaster response team. If a major storm does impact us, you can be assured Palm Beach County is ready and able to respond quickly to the needs of our residents and visitors. We all hope South Florida will be spared this season, but hope is not a plan. While we can hope for the best, we must prepare for the worst. It is everybody's responsibility to be prepared for a major storm. but government cannot do it alone. It is up to each and every resident to be prepared, have evacuation plans in place, and make sure our homes are secure as possible. It is everyone's responsibility to have a plan, build a kit, be informed, and get involved. We encourage every Palm Beach County resident to be prepared to spend several days without electricity, and this means enough food, water, fuel, clothing, and medicine. We are indeed stronger together, especially when all of us are prepared. Wrapping up, I'd like to give you some options for your downtime while you're here. And I hope you'll find some time to discover the beauty and excitement of Palm Beach County and the hospitality that we're pleased to extend to you during your stay. In addition to taking a walk on a scenic stretch of our 47-mile coastline, the county has a variety of natural environments that offer fascinating strolls. The trails at Murakami Museum and at Green Cay Nature Center make a great place for an afternoon stroll. For a higher level of activity, you can explore many of our snorkeling areas, diving sites, fishing piers, biking trails, and over 160 golf courses. Or perhaps go kayaking on the Loxahatchee Wild or the scenic river in Riverbend Park. For those not quite so active, I invite you to stroll a few blocks north of here and enjoy the many diverse dining and entertainment options that the Square and Clematis Street are going to offer you. No doubt you'll appreciate that our county has a lot to offer. All of these experiences can be previewed on your laptop or phone at thepalmbeaches.tv or download the app Tourism Television for the Palm Beaches. I wish you a successful conference and thank you once again for visiting our county, Palm Beach County. Thanks again.
Really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mayor Weinroth. This is like a family reunion here. Although retired, all my Palm Beach County friends are right here. Commissioner McKinley, Commissioner Weiss, County Administrator Baker, Mary Blakeney and her entire emergency management team, Stephanie Shanahall, Public Safety Director. I could go on. We are blessed here in Palm Beach County to have the tremendous support of all the administration and the entire county staff and family. We really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Again, we're blessed. We want you to be social with us throughout this week. Our sincerest thanks to, speaking of family here, we want you to give sincere thanks to Palm Beach County's Public Affairs Department, Lisa and her entire team, as well as the Florida State University Emergency Management and Homeland Security Program. We have a multifaceted social media program. So please, like us on Facebook at Florida at GHC, all one word. Follow us on Twitter at Florida GHC. Monitor hashtag GHC2022 and hashtag Stronger Together GHC. You need to make sure you add the GHC to that. And add these hashtags to all of your posts. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Next, be sure to download our interactive mobile app for the conference. You can download it free from both the Apple Store and the Google Play. Search for GHC 2022, again, all one word. Our mobile app is an easy-to-use tool that has many useful resources that will help you easily navigate your way through this entire conference. And believe it or not, it's simple enough that even I can use it. So please look for that. Speaking of social, we encourage everyone to take part in our virtual social media exercise. Again, our thanks to FSU's Emergency Management and Homeland Security Program for sponsoring this fun, interactive, and real-time social media exercise. Users of any skill level can join in. The exercise will be completely virtual, so there is no need for you to block off any valuable time in order to participate. There is no real physical component to this exercise. The exercise will focus on how social media can be used during an emergency and how using the right communication tool will be important to accomplishing the right task. Participants will earn points by completing entertaining tasks such as a virtual scavenger hunt, tagging signature events of the conference throughout the week using social media, or posting and geotagging photos and selfies. Remember to tag and post every post with GHC SMX and Stronger Together GHC. For further information and details about every day's task, please go to the URL shown on our slide in yellow font. There will be daily prizes and a grand prize winner. Winners and final results will be announced Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. at workshop number 148 in the Coral Ballroom in the West Palm Beach Hilton next door. And of course, winners will be announced on social media. To put on a national cutting-edge conference like this, it takes a great deal of support from our partners. The Governor's Hurricane Conference has 4 sponsors: the Florida Emergency Preparedness Association, the American Red Cross, the National Weather Service, and the Florida Division of Emergency Management. Each sponsoring agency holds 2 seats on the governing board of directors. I would like to ask that we recognize each of these directors. Mr. Paul Womble is the current board president of the Governor's Hurricane Conference and is the Emergency Management Director of Polk County Emergency Management and represents the Florida Emergency Preparedness Association. Our very own Ms. Mary Blakeney is board vice president and is the director of Palm Beach County Emergency Management and is past president of the Florida Emergency Preparedness Association. Mr. Jack Morgan, board treasurer and disaster volunteer of the Southeast and Caribbean region of the American Red Cross, and Ms. Pam Bergstrom, board secretary and Region 3 Recovery Regional Coordinator of the Florida Division of Emergency Management. Mr. Mike Coyne, director of the Southern Region of the National Weather Service, Mr. Brian Lamar, meteorologist in charge of the Tampa Bay Area Weather Forecast Office of the National Weather Service, Ms. Melissa Surratt, Recovery Bureau Chief of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and finally, Mr. Ryan Locke, Division Disaster State Relations Director of the American Red Cross. We also have several hard-working committees: Program Committee, Awards Committee, Marketing and Outreach Committee, Educational Outreach, Audit, and Support. Committees and work groups comprised of representatives of each of these sponsoring agencies. All are volunteers and donate hundreds of hours of their valuable time to manage the operational aspects of this conference. On behalf of the Governor's Hurricane Conference, I would like to sincerely thank each of the sponsoring agencies and their representatives for all of their tremendous support for this conference. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the conference's new executive director. Renee Daines has been part of the conference for many years, officially employed by the conference for the last 16 years. When she started, she managed just the registration process, but over time, like us all, her responsibilities gradually evolved by adding program development and more. And in 2020, she was appointed by the board of directors as executive director. Despite no conference for the last 3 years, she single-handedly held the organization together and has, for the most part, put this entire conference together by herself. She is a skilled and talented professional, and we owe her a debt of gratitude. Renee Daines, please stand. Thank you, Renee. It's been just a joy and a pleasure working with you. That being said, I would like to take Master of Ceremonies prerogative and briefly reflect on the woman that Renee replaced, Lynn Daines. Heaven gained a true angel when we lost Lynn in 2019. Those of you who knew Lynn know that she was one of us. She worked for the American Red Cross in Pinellas County for 17 years as the Director of Emergency Services. She recruited, trained, and mentored hundreds of volunteers. In 1985, during Hurricane Elena, she led one of the largest single-county evacuation operations in the nation at the time, sheltering almost 114,000 evacuees. Because of her expertise, she was instrumental in the planning and managing the first ever Florida State Hurricane Conference, held at the Mission Inn in Howey in the Hills, Florida, in 1987. This conference became a national model, ultimately growing into the nation's most successful conference on tropical cyclones, the Governor's Hurricane Conference. Lynn served as the executive director of the conference for over 3 decades. Her groundbreaking contributions to the field of emergency management and the education of thousands of planners and first responders, many of who are in this room today, is immeasurable. Her passion for engaging and mentoring volunteers, for providing quality education to Florida's disaster responders, her love for animals, and her desire for a more compassionate world were authentic and inspiring. We miss you, Lynn, and we know that you will be with us and watching over us in our every move this week. You taught us well. We know that you gave us all, including Renee, the guidance and the tools to continue your great work. We are privileged to have Renee at the helm, and may God bless you both. Thank you. I also want to take a moment to thank the multitude of volunteers that are working behind the scenes of this conference and making it such a successful conference. The room monitors, the registration staff, the audiovisual gurus in the back of the room, the computer and technology geniuses, the certificate preparers, the logistical volunteers that haul and move tons of equipment, drivers, runners, and the countless more volunteers who log hundreds of hours throughout this entire very long week, and others who dedicate hundreds of more hours before and after the conference to make this conference the excellent value that it is and an outstanding experience for each of you. If I could ask our conference volunteers, board members, committee chairs, committee members to all stand, and please join me in a round of applause for all of these generous supporters. We owe them all a great debt of gratitude and appreciation. Thank you very much. So let's just take a few minutes to discuss our conference theme, Stronger Together. It's been 3 long and arduous years we last met here in 2019. Again, welcome back. It's good to get the band back together again. These past few years have brought all of us some very extraordinary challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic has transformed us in ways that we have never comprehended, both personally and professionally. The COVID-19 pandemic fundamentally reshaped our world, the way we live, the way we work, the way we connect. COVID turned our lives upside down and changed not just the way we live and work, but also how we think and behave. We implemented new strategies that distanced us. We had widespread closures and cancellations, avoidance of any congregate settings. Remote or teleworking became commonplace. Zoom meetings were invented. Plexiglass shielding was everywhere. Sequestration became a word of commonplace. Online ordering, Uber Eats, DoorDash, curbside pickup, all those things. While at times necessary, these strategies not only isolated us, but I think they made us a little lonely. The pandemic highlighted the importance of social interaction and human contact within almost every aspect of our lives. We are social creatures, and we need social interaction and human contact. We learned that loneliness hurt more than we thought. We missed our friends. We missed our families. We missed our coworkers. And we craved the outside world. Living in such unprecedented times made us cherish the small yet important aspects of life. Most importantly, we formed relationships with the people that we love, the people we care about, and colleagues that went on those crazy journeys with us. We were thrown into this thunderstorm of uncertainty and irregularities, but we fought through it with ways that we never imagined. We befriended technology and learned that there's no going back. We used technology to do new things of work for us by tracking assets, monitoring situation status, collecting data, and the like. We used technology to reach out to each other via Zoom or WebEx or whatnot to share our needs, to ventilate our frustrations, and just to simply support each other. Sometimes we use technology to simply commiserate, to feel as if we were part of something bigger. We renewed our understanding that emergency management is a team sport. We made new friends, albeit virtually, that will stay with us for years to come, just like the relationships that we make when we physically respond to disasters. And we met everyone's pets. We reached out to disciplines that we never imagined we would ever be collaborating with, and we made lasting relationships and achieved successes. We became more open with each other. We leaned on each other. In fact, we leaned on a larger audience, and we sought out camaraderie. We learned that thank you events were an important way of showing our gratitude and support for those that we leaned on. If a pandemic wasn't enough, 3 years of record storm seasons was a true test of our resilience. 70 named storms, count them, 70, over the last 3 Atlantic seasons. Not only did these seasons exhaust the names of the National Hurricane Center's conventional naming list, they exhausted us, and they exhausted our fellow responders, everyone in this room. But we survived. We survived these seasons and their challenges together. Disasters prove to us time and again that there is an enormous strength and goodness in humanity, even in darkness. We didn't let exhaustion overcome us, and we didn't let pessimism suffocate us. In fact, we thrived. Throughout these record-setting years of hurricane activity, we adapted. These past years exemplified how we do business through coordination, collaboration, flexible decision-making, and forging partnerships pre-event and trusting them in the heat of response. The crazy COVID roller coaster ride oftentimes made hurricane preparedness and response comfortable. But these past years truly tested us. We collected more data and analyzed more statistics than our core training ever prepared us. But we were able to get a unique and better glimpse of our world. We increased our partnerships, both intra-agency and inter-agency. We enhanced our political finesse. We learned again the importance of having a stash ready for the next crisis. And it may stick this time, I hope. We also learned that cleanliness is next to godliness. As a nurse, I had to get that in there. We learned that family matters more than we realized. We built confidence, strength, and optimism. And we learned that we are adaptive and that life is more flexible than we think. We are entering a new era, yet the policy decisions aren't over. The challenges of hurricanes during an endemic will continue. We must continue to support each other. Major disasters have always been the catalyst of change. And after every incident, we reflect and we learn, and we remake our profession to be more dynamic, more mature, more capable, stronger. Lee Mayfield and his program committee have developed an enlightening array of educational and networking opportunities to help you develop your strategy to adapt and thrive. The 25-member all-volunteer committee has spent the last 9 months developing and choreographing this conference just for you. I think we've prepared an excellent program for you. We have carefully chosen qualified and experienced faculty to present material in each of the programs, with over 360 hours of educational sessions, including 40 training sessions and 50 workshops. The Governor's Hurricane Conference remains the premier event for the delivery of economical training and education to ensure our ability to adequately respond to and recover from tropical events. This year's training events and sessions and workshops and general session will not only look to our new approaches and best practices, but also to look at how we have become and will continue to work to be stronger together. We welcome you to join us in the process to actively participate in sharing and supporting each other and responding together with unity and strength. I thank you very much for your time. As the conference has grown, so has the partnership with our exhibitors, and today they continue to be our most loyal supporters. Please show your recognition of their partnership with us by visiting the exhibit hall and participating in the activities that we have planned for you. At the conclusion of this session, the exhibit hall will be open, and there will be a complimentary luncheon at noon for all registered attendees. You'll need to and this evening then at 5 p.m. there will be a complimentary reception in the exhibit hall for all registered attendees. Please remember to wear your name tag, and tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. we will have dedicated time exclusively for the exhibit hall, which includes a beverage break with snacks. The exhibit hall closes tomorrow at noon, so be sure to manage your time wisely. So without further ado, let's get started with the rest of our general session program. We invited Governor Ron DeSantis to provide us a keynote speaker or his keynote address today, but unfortunately he is unable to attend the conference today and sends his regrets. Some of my close friends today, who probably aren't my close friends anymore, suggested that maybe I continue my vacation stories from 2018. Some of you may remember that. And in fact, Rick and my buds back in the back of the room have put this nice fancy white thing so that I could give you better shadow puppets. Yeah. You think this is easy up here, okay? It ain't. But I think in just the interest of professionalism, I will just move right on. So with that, speaking of very professional, I will introduce our first speaker this morning, Mr. Ken Graham, the director of the National Hurricane Center. Mr. Graham began his National Weather Service career as an intern forecaster in New Orleans in 1994. His career took him to Fort Worth and Corpus Christi, Texas, Birmingham, Alabama, and most recently New Orleans and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Mr. Graham has extensive experience working directly with emergency managers during numerous high-impact events. Ken has developed an emergency operations centers, provided impact decision support briefings for emergency managers and elected officials, and delivered numerous training sessions and exercises related to tropical weather. He received his bachelor's degree at the University of Arizona and his master's degree from Mississippi State University. It is truly my honor to present to you a friend and colleague of all of us, Mr. Ken Graham.
Good morning, everybody. What a wonderful treat it is to be in person again. And you didn't warn me. I can't see anybody because the lights are so bright. So I'm trusting you're actually there, I think. So the words we just heard were, it's incredible. I mean, the Stronger Together. I changed my title. I never know if I'm going to show PowerPoint slides, even 10 minutes before I get up on stage, but I have a few of them here. Stronger Together is such a testimony to looking at this audience here. We've been through a lot. I mean, you think about the pandemic the last couple of years, you think about fires. I mean, we can't just have Hurricane Michael. We have to have damage, and then the damaged trees burn, right? These disasters compound on each other. We have hurricanes, floods, we've had tornadoes, all of that. And you're back for more. What does that say? It says so much. How many times you got in your communities and you talk about resilience? You talk about the community being resilient and coming back for more, coming back for more. You are resilient as a community. Emergency managers at the national, state and local levels, media, Red Cross, everybody in here, vendors, we're all back because we're resilient, because we have to be, right? Our constituents depend on us to be resilient. I want to encourage you big time this week, today, the next couple days, remind yourself of why you got into this business. Because it's not easy, is it? You have to deal with disasters. Everybody's watching. Social media is very happy to let you know how you're doing. Right? Remind yourselves, tell each other your stories of why you got into this. And I'll start it off, and some people have already heard it, but I want to do it again because it's so important to remember why we did this. And I just remember why did I join the Weather Service in 1994? I was doing television weather. Fresh out of college, getting my master's degree. About 22 years old, I knew everything, by the way. And I let everybody know that I did. I was a little cocky, you know, getting this degree. Atmospheric physics, math, physics, huh, Dennis? Dennis Falcon, by the way, retiring at the end of the month. So make sure you say hi to Dennis. This will be, we're going to miss you, Dennis, big time. So in the front row, make sure you say hi to Dennis on this trip. So doing television weather, it was a tornado outbreak. You think about the early 90s, it was the early days of going wall to wall. Tornado event, doing my thing. And it was so exciting for a meteorologist because, wow, I can take all this science, a lot of math and equations, and I can tell people they're all watching me. And the whole station works for me because it's all about weather today. So right on air live, there's a reporter that came out of the newsroom, and while on air, psst, Ken, literally, I did this. Go away, I'm on air. It's interesting. So eventually, after 2 or 3 minutes of, psst, Ken, you have a phone call. Folks, we'll be right back. We're going to go to commercial. Stay tuned, because it's a dangerous situation. Take the phone call. It's a gentleman. Says, hey, I'm watching you. Very nervous sounding. I'm watching you on air. I don't know where we live. Got some more information, figured out what county they were under a tornado warning. This was in Mississippi. I said, well, you're in a warning. You need to take cover. He goes, well, I live in a mobile home. I don't know where to go with me and my family. I said, well, you probably need to get out. It was really evident that they were really close to disaster. So I said, you need to get out, find a ditch, protect your head, get away from debris, low-lying area, whatever you can, get away and get safe. Put the phone down, get back on air. Hi, welcome back, folks. We got tornadoes, right? Remember, cocky. Hour later or so, psst, Ken, phone call. Brush off, repeat. Finally took the phone call. It was the same gentleman. The same person says, hi, I just want to let you know that we're okay. Well, that's nice. I'm glad you're okay. He goes, you don't seem to understand. He says, the trailer's gone. And we're alive. Me, my family, we're alive. It's not about equations. It's not about anything. It's about the mission. It's about the people that we serve. And I resigned from that TV station. 1994 and joined the National Weather Service because I want to be a part of that warning process. Never forget why you got into this business. Tell each other those stories this week. That's what this is about, because we're stronger together. Stronger because what we've been through, stronger because the stories that we have to tell, and together because, doggone it, we're in this room, we're ready for more, and we're going to do it, right? Okay. So, people always ask, has it been busy? And we heard some of the stats. I'm going to show you some stuff. Has it been busy? 2020 and 2021, 51 Atlantic storms, 34 in the Pacific. Oh, by the way, we cover both oceans. We cover from Africa and Europe all the way to 140 west in the Pacific. We got this big old area we got to deal with. We had 85 named storms in 2 years. Every one of those storms is ours. Has it been busy? 16 hurricanes have made landfall in the United States since 2017. 7 of those were major. And Earl from Louisiana, you're going to hear from him in a little bit, knows all about how busy it's been. Folks, we've had more landfalling Cat 4 and Cat 5 hurricanes since 2017 than we did from 1963 to 2016. How's that for has it been busy? And I want to be, we had Irma. I want to be really say this for everyone here in Florida. I don't have to change that weather pattern too much, reflecting at that map. I can move that high pressure out in the Atlantic. I could put a lot of those storms into Florida. Louisiana got hit pretty hard, but it doesn't take much of a change, and those would have been our storms. So we can't let our guard down, especially the public. We've got to make sure they don't let their guard down because they can still get busy. 2021 was the third most active in terms of named storms, fifth costliest, over $75 billion. We ran out of names again, 2 years in a row. We couldn't just have one disaster. We had 2 years of busy seasons in a pandemic. We've only run out of names 3 times ever, 2005, 2020, and 2021. In 2020, we were so busy, we had to figure out how to retire Greek alphabet names. I never thought I'd see that in my career. And we did. In fact, how we did it, we just got rid of using it altogether. Think about that, having to be faced with that. The World Meteorological Organization, I chair the committee, Region 4, we're the ones that come up with the new names. We retire the names. We just decided to go with an alternate name list. Because how do you retire the Greek alphabet name? And there was so much confusion with the Greek alphabet, eta, zeta, theta. Some of the translations meant different things in different languages. Believe me, some of those were very interesting in some of the other languages. When you get a call from a different country going, I don't know how to use this name on air. Well, what does it mean? And they told me, and I said, just put hurricane in front of it and just hope to heck you're going to be okay. That's a true story. I can tell you what it meant. I could talk to you more offline about that. That's a heck of a story there. I'm not going to do it here. So look at this. I mean, $320 billion in damage, $18 billion storms. We had 7 $10 billion storms. Hurricane Ida alone was over $75 billion in damages. It's been busy, folks. I want to cover this in my talk. I've been in the Weather Service almost 28 years, and there's certain things that always get us, the gotchas, things that are always really difficult to get through, the things that burn us, so to speak, in the heat of the battle. And I think it's important to talk about these real-life things as we prepare for the future. Okay? We have a lot of exercises we do before hurricane season. We run those exercises. Everyone's got a timeline. Every state, the country, counties and parishes, they all have timelines. I've worked a lot of those exercises, 5-day exercises, 7-day exercises. In Deepwater Horizon, it's the first time I ever heard of a 14-day plan for a tropical system, and I walked out. Here, I got news for you. Hurricanes don't care about your timelines. Not one single bit. So if you look at some storms, Florence, we see these things come across the Atlantic. But as Kevin knows and others, you get the Michaels of the world, and they get us pretty quick. All right. Here's a stat for you. We've got to look at the past. Let's talk about this. The nation's strongest storms, 150 miles per hour or greater. 9 of them. All but one was a tropical storm 3 days out. Hurricanes don't care about our timelines. The stats are real simple. Think about this. Only 3 of them became tropical depressions 5 days before landfall. I like this stat, this one. The average time of those 9 storms becoming a hurricane was 50 hours before landfall. And by the way, about 12 hours, 18 hours before that landfall, you already have impacts. You already see the surge, you already see the rain, you already see the wind. So you already see impacts much less than that. It's interesting. So out of all, in the last 100 years, every single storm that's hit this country, 150 miles per hour or greater, was a tropical storm or less 3 days prior. So it's good to have our 7-day plan on the shelf. It's good to have a 5-day plan on the shelf. You've got to consider a 3-day plan too. Have it there ready to go. And you may not be able to do everything on that plan, but you got to be ready to implement it because history shows the big ones are going to sneak up on us really quick. Folks, little wiggles really matter. And we have to continue to talk to the public about, just because it didn't happen last time doesn't mean it won't happen the next time. Small changes make a huge difference on the ground. I've already been through the big hurricane. I went through Andrew. I went through the big one, Katrina. I went through the big one, Camille. Everybody compares their risk to their previous experience. But here's the reality on the ground. Little wiggles matter. This is Hurricane Laura. The pink line there is the actual track. The blue line is, we reran the modeling and said, okay, let's move Hurricane Laura 20 miles to the west. The colors on the map is the change in the storm surge. 20 miles is a little wiggle. Did you know our average error on the forecast is 30 miles, 24 hours out? That's left, right, forward, back. To the meteorologists, if we're 30 miles off in 24 hours, it's a pretty good job with the science. But look what it does on the ground in your communities. 20 miles made the difference in some communities seeing 10 to 15 feet higher in storm surge. Lake Charles would have got an additional 10 feet of storm surge with a 20-mile jog to the west. It's an important thing because people think they've been through it, but these little wiggles matter. Every storm is different. It becomes a little bumper sticker, right? Because we say it so much. But the reality is it's real. Please, this is important because I see this all the time. Don't cut your decisions razor sharp. A lot of mapping is really pretty, right? Pretty doesn't mean accurate. Pretty doesn't mean that there's probabilistic information in there. This is real information. This is from IDA. If you look at the wind, this is the 24-hour forecast. Look at the very end, the end of the forecast there. 24-hour forecast, valid 1 a.m. on August 30th. That's what was the forecast. This is what actually happened. It's not a bad forecast from a science standpoint. But that's in and out of hurricane force winds. That's in or out of an inch of rain or 12 inches of rain. That's in and out of catastrophic winds or not much wind at all. Think about that for a second. It's razor sharp. Some of this is razor sharp. You can't cut decision making razor sharp. You'll get burned. Does that make sense? You got to look at history on how this is. Here's another one. This is Ida as well. And Earl Hughes is here from Terrebonne Parish. 15 miles to the east in that track is a really interesting situation. Could have pushed another 5 to 7 feet of storm surge on some of the levees. That's still a good forecast, but what a difference on the ground. So remember, little wiggles matter. Please don't compare storms. Please encourage everyone not to. Every storm is so different. This is really an important point. Did you know the stronger the storm, the better our accuracy? We send the hurricane hunters out to look at these storms when there's barely a cloud out there because 10 or 20 miles difference in the actual center of it at the beginning could make a 200, 300, 400 mile difference in where it ends up. It's that early storm formation, that genesis phase. There's so much riding on where that storm is, and it can make a big difference. When well established, we're more accurate. Look at the difference between these forecasts. You look at Laura, everything's compact, well-developed storm, very accurate. Marco all over the place. Look at Sally. We had the hurricane hunters headed out there and found several centers at the same time. And depending what center was the actual center with time, could make a good 40, 50 miles difference of where it ended up. That is a tough forecast. It's a tough forecast. Look at this one. I think this is interesting. This is the Ida forecast that you see on the right. On the left side there, that is where the forecast would have been, according to the models, before the storm center formed. Way off. In other words, our initial forecast would have taken the storm to Houston. And the social science says it's going to be really difficult to bend that back. People anchor on that first piece of information. It's very difficult to bend that back to it's going somewhere else. That's where it would have been initially. Look at the model guidance. For those of you that like to follow every model, we'll talk about that in a second. That's where the initial models were. Think of that. So that's when, well before the first forecast, was a call to Texas saying, I don't know if it's you or Louisiana, but somebody's going to get it. It's a true story. There was a call to Louisiana saying, I don't know if it's you or Texas, but somebody's going to get it. That's a true story. This was days before the first forecast was even issued. Back to the trust, back to the relationships, having the relationships to make those calls, saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but something really bad's on the way. And FEMA Administrator Deanne, we talked. I mean, it was like, something bad's going to happen. I don't know what yet. That's what we were dealing with. I wanted to show you behind the scenes what we're dealing with. Those are all of our forecasts for Hurricane Ida. Pretty spot on. But remember, if you zoom in, you'll see some little wiggles. Right? But spot on. That would have been the original one. Those are our intensity forecasts for every one of them. We knew it was going to be a major hurricane. The Hurricane Ida initial forecast, Dan Brown is here. I can't see him, can't find him. So Dan Brown, there he is. Dan Brown issued that first advisory for Hurricane Ida, and it was the boldest forecast in Hurricane Center history. To go all out on a major hurricane on the first advisory shows you how much we've trusting the models, how far we've come to trust the data, and how far we've come to be able to communicate this, one of the boldest forecasts in our history. Because remember, hurricanes don't care about our timelines. We got to get this stuff out quick. But it's a balance between taking it to Texas and then trying to swing it back versus being able to get a good forecast out. We need to have more conversations about this. Indirect fatalities. There's such a perception with the public about the storm's past me, I'm safe now, and that is not the case. And the vulnerable community, the people most vulnerable, are the ones most impacted by these storms, and often the ones losing their lives. Look at this. If you're over 60 years old, you're 8 times as likely to be a victim in a tropical system than if you're under 21 years old. We've got to figure out ways to focus on those most vulnerable. We've got to find out ways to be able to get out to these communities and be able to talk to them about how to get information. And historically, the number one cause of fatalities in a tropical system afterwards is cardiac arrest. There's heat, right? You look at carbon monoxide. Did you know, remember I said it was so busy since 2017? Did you know we lost more people to carbon monoxide poisoning than we did from storm surge since 2017? There's one for us. There's a challenge for us. We're making a dent with the storm surge watch and warning. We're making a dent with reducing those fatalities in storm surge. Here's another stat for you. Since 2017, we've lost more people in these tropical systems to inland flooding than we have storm surge. And most of those in automobiles in a lot of cases. So using that data to focus us going into the future is so critical. Look at the stats here. Ida direct versus indirect fatalities. There were 6 direct fatalities in the southeast U.S. from Ida, a landfalling strong, Category 4. But we lost 49 people in the northeast U.S. So you go back in history, I could find so many cases of this. You look at Camille, where we lost more people in Virginia than we did in Mississippi from a landfalling Category 5 hurricane. That moisture, all that storm's got to go somewhere, and it goes inland. So we have to be able to continue to convince people you don't have to be just on the coast to have the big impacts from these tropical systems. But look what happens. This is direct. This is indirect. It flip-flops. Historically, it flip-flops, because what happens is you have the damaged area, and you have power outages, you have heat, you have health, you have all the issues associated with these tropical systems. So the danger zone is in those areas after the storm. It flip-flops. So recognizing this, we focus our messaging, our social media, getting this information out. And the whole social media exercise, I think I saw that, that's huge, by the way, because I've really been trying to harp on how we get information out. We have 9 social science projects going on. We're really trying to look at the social aspects of what we do. My mom does not get information the same way as my kids. My mom is watching TV. My mom uses Facebook. Well, my kids won't use Facebook because if I use it, it's not cool. My kids use TikTok. So if I can't get information out to my kids about a hurricane while riding a skateboard, holding a fluffy cat, singing a song, you know it's true. My kids won't get that information. How are we going to deal with that as a community? You got 30 seconds to get my kids the information, and they've already moved on to the next weird thing that you see on TikTok. Okay. I'm going to repeat this stat. In the last 4 years, we've lost more people to carbon monoxide poisoning after the storm than we have in storm surge. We're tackling where we're losing people. Storm surge historically has been the leading cause of fatalities. We tackled it. Storm surge watch and warning, inundation mapping, maps that show water up your pant leg. You don't have to do math, right? So we're tackling those things. We got to work on inland rain. We really got to work on that. Anyway, I can go on and on with this stuff. We got to figure out ways to communicate more deterministically. We've got to be careful following the model of choice. This is Hurricane Laura. This is 18Z, the 24th. That's the model guidance. All right, we can combine that, we can blend that and come up with a forecast. Well, what happens? That model guidance starts to shift. We're still trying to get the aircraft out there. Haven't got the aircraft out there yet. This is 0Z on the 25th. Uh-oh, look at this, 060 on the 25th. The model's shifting further to the left. That right line there is the actual track. Our forecast never shifted with the models because we knew we were going to have some aircraft data that would really bring that together. Once the aircraft got in there, all those models came together nicely. This is an important point. We got to be careful with this. We're making a big, big dent in the accuracy of the track forecast. Look at that. That's staggering. Compare the 1960s throughout the decades to recent times, 30 miles on average, the error out 24 hours isn't bad. We're really making a dent in that forecast. These models, one could do great one time and not great the next time. Be really careful following those models of choice. How many times have I come up here and said we got a long way to go in intensity, right? We cut the intensity forecast error in half in the last 3 years. We're getting there with intensity too. Yep. And it's some of the modeling, it's the aircraft data. The aircraft's going out in this, and the aircraft data that we get is making the intensity forecast in the models 20% better. Take that in. That's the no-go, evacuate or not evacuate for a big city. 20% is the go, no-go for a big city in evacuation. That is a very big deal. Here's the final stat. We have humans doing this. We blend the models. We're looking at 60, 70 different blends of those models. During a hurricane, one of the probably the most frequent call that I get from emergency managers, media, elected officials, the phone will ring, heat of the battle. Hey, Ken. Hey, how are you? Yeah, did you see the latest GFS? Yeah, we do that for a living. I'm not kidding. We're doing the science so you don't have to. On average, we're beating the models, not just with the tracking the intensity, we're more consistent because you can't make a decision on a forecast that does this, right? We're more consistent, we're more accurate. Trust us. We're trying to take that away from you so you got bigger decisions, tough decisions. Evacuate a hospital is not an easy decision. Evacuate a community is not an easy decision. We take that away. We're more accurate, so use it. So be very careful using the spaghetti models. Yeah, I don't know why that's there. It's okay. Be careful doing that. You know, they'll flip-flop. We know what's going on. We know there's aircraft data in there or not. We really got a handle on how this is going. So be careful. We're looking at all of them. We're blending, so you don't have to. Why does it matter? It really matters that we're accurate. In 1999, Hurricane Floyd, 2.6 million people evacuated, the largest U.S. evacuation at the time in our history. Hurricane Dorian, more pinpoint with the forecast, more accurate with the forecast, better communicative with the forecast involving social science, really narrowing down the storm surge so we don't have to evacuate everybody. We prevented as many as 3 million people not evacuating, and that was through science. That was through science and getting that forecast out and trusting that forecast, because people lose their lives in evacuations. Everybody always talks about evacuation, evacuation. There's a conversation about not evacuating is a big deal. Look at our cone. Isn't that amazing? The better we do, the smaller the cone. But remember, the cone is where we think the center is going to be 2/3 of the time, right? That means more impacts outside the cone. So we have a social science project looking at, do we need to change the cone? I don't know. Maybe we got to make it look a little bit different. Help me with this one, please. In this country, we come up with a medium risk or a high risk of hurricane development. We got your attention, right? You see the little blob, the little orange blobs and red blobs on the map? You're paying attention. You got them on the wall. You're ready to go. If there's a moderate or a high risk of tornadoes, we're closing schools, we're opening EOCs, we're ramping up. We don't do the same thing with water. We don't do the same thing with rain. The Weather Prediction Center has this product, and it's probabilistic, like the storm surge. It's got all the different errors, bigger, smaller, left, right, all the different things built into it. Moderate risk, high risk. 90% of fatalities in tropical systems comes from the water. Inland rain being one of the leading causes of fatalities we have throughout the year. We have heat, but you look at the rainfall. We have to, in this country, figure out a way to take the rain, because that's how people are losing lives. We got to take this as serious as a tornado. We got to take this as serious as everything else. Does that make sense? So if you see a moderate or high risk of flash flooding, we got to ramp it up, because that's how people are losing their lives. And I'm going to wrap up with a couple bonus ones. There's no such thing as Justa, and as the chair of the committee that comes up with the names, I'm never going to have a Hurricane Justa. I do control that. We've had some big hurricanes since 2017. Don't forget these, please. You'll get burned. A Cat 1 could produce torrential rainfall, storm surge, incredible damage. 185 people have lost their lives since 2010 in Category 1s, and there's been $110 billion worth of damage. Can't forget these either, right? No such thing as Justa. Please help me with this. There's no such thing as a fish storm. We like to say that because it's not coming here, right? Fish storm. There's a lot more to it than that. Our responsibility is to keep the ships out of harm's way. We have to get people on the oceans out of harm's way. This is Lorenzo. Look how far it is away from the coast. Yeah, we had 8 rip current deaths in the United States from Florida to Rhode Island. The Bourbon Road sank. 3 were rescued. Even the hurricane hunters at NOAA peeled off the mission to go help with the search and rescue mission. But we lost 11 people on that ship. And one of the rip current fatalities was my former supervisor in the Weather Service, lost his life in one of these rip currents. No such thing as a fish storm. We got to listen to the impacts, and we got to be ready for that. We lost 130 people in 2021 from rip currents, so let's keep on talking about that. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. We built a lab. We're taking this so serious. We have 9 social science projects that we have going on at the same time. If you've been to the Hurricane Center, this is the old library. We built a lab. We're going to take research, science research, social science research, and we're going to get it into operations. It's the first time that we have research meteorologists working eyeball to eyeball with the operational meteorologists in 20 years. We built a lab. Come see. I want to say zoo so bad. We built a zoo, but I'm not. We built a lab. So if you haven't been to the Hurricane Center in a while, come see us and take care of that. That's my email address. I joke that 25% of emergency managers have my cell phone number. Please call me, but don't ask me about the latest GFS. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. As always, spectacular, really good job. There were several slides that I could relate to, but I really liked the one with the spaghetti on it. That was excellent, excellent. Thank you. This year, we are going to try something a little different by offering a panel discussion during our general session. We wanted to look at the hurricane responses that we missed over the last 3 years, but realized that no single speaker could adequately cover all of this material. So we invited 2 emergency management directors directly impacted to help tell that story. Louisiana was impacted by 8 storms during that time frame, 2 of which were strongest in the state history, specifically Hurricane Laura and Hurricane Ida. While Florida only had 3 landfalling storms, there were several storm precursors and tropical depressions requiring evacuations, sheltering, and resulted in storm surge, flooding, damage, and even a few deaths. And during these record seasons, Florida provided mutual aid to our neighbors amid a global pandemic. Now, while this is a hurricane conference, we can't overlook the tremendous challenges that a global pandemic presented to us and the innovative solutions that we used to resolve them. So I think our panel format will provide a nice perspective. Mr. Earl Hughes, Director of Terrebonne Parish Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management in Louisiana, will provide us a glimpse of the relentless hurricane attacks in his jurisdiction, while Kevin Guthrie, Director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, will provide us his perspective of the challenges posed by record hurricane seasons, the global pandemic, and the concomitant statewide policy issues that surfaced considering the myriad of logistical demands. So let me introduce to you our 2 panelists. Mr. Earl Hughes, the Director, as I said, of Terrebonne Parish Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, holds a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from Nichols State University and has over 33 years of experience in environmental regulatory field and various emergency response and coordination disciplines. He coordinates the day-to-day and emergency operations for the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government from their newly constructed 11,000 square foot EOC, which he managed the construction located in Gray, Louisiana. Since his appointment as director in 2008, he has managed numerous events affecting his jurisdiction, including Hurricane Gustav, Hurricane Ike, Hurricane Isaac, and Hurricane Barry. He also managed the parish operations during the 2009 BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and of course the current COVID-19 health emergency, which began in 2020. In 2020, the parish EOC was activated 4 times for Hurricanes Marco, Laura, Delta, and Zeta, and in 2021 for Tropical Storm Claudette and Hurricane Ida. Terrebonne Parish includes Port Fortune, Louisiana, where Hurricane Ida made landfall as a Category 4 storm, and the city of Houma, which is one of the first cities to suffer the catastrophic impact of Hurricane Ida. I'd also ask Mr. Kevin Guthrie to join me here on stage, who has more than 30 years of experience in public safety and emergency management in the state of Florida. He spent 23 years as a police officer and emergency preparedness coordinator with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He served as the public safety and emergency management director for Flagler County for 2 years before moving on to Pasco County, where he was initially the emergency services director and later promoted to assistant county administrator. In 2018, Governor Rick Scott appointed him to the Florida Division of Emergency Management Chief of Staff position, and last May, Governor Ron DeSantis appointed him as director of the division. Kevin has received numerous awards for his efforts and success in emergency management and holds a Master's of Arts in Human Services from Liberty University and a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Justice from Columbia College. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Directors Kevin Guthrie and Earl Hughes. We wanted to have this as more of a casual conversation. So first I'd like to do is have Earl talk to us a little bit about his experience for a few minutes. Then we'll have Kevin talk a little bit about his experience and perspective. And then I'll be asking a few questions that I think that I can anticipate that you might be interested in asking these folks. So let's start with Earl first.
First of all, thank you all for the opportunity to be here in South Florida. And I also want to thank all of you out in the audience for your passion and the work that you do during the emergencies. Everyone in this room has an important position, and we appreciate that. I also want to extend some appreciation out to everyone that supported our state during the last 2 years. We've had a lot of help from all over the country, and I know people in Florida have contributed to that, and I wanted to thank you all for that, for that kindness. It's been a tough 2 years, as stated by Ken Graham. We had two of the strongest hurricanes ever to hit Louisiana. Hurricane Laura hit the southwestern portion, which was Calcasieu Parish and Cameron Parish. In 2020, last year in 2021, we had Hurricane Ida. So one of the biggest issues that we faced was temporary housing due to the fact of the COVID pandemic. For Hurricane Laura, 13,000 people were evacuated to New Orleans and put in hotel rooms due to the non-congregate sheltering issues. So pretty much every hotel in the New Orleans region was filled with evacuees due to COVID. Transportation, getting them to those hotels from Calcasieu Parish, it's about a 4-hour ride on a bus, and then coordinating all of that inside those hotels. Some people stayed in those hotels till April of last year because of the temporary housing issue back in Cameron Parish and Calcasieu Parish. When you have such a large storm like that, we lose our apartment complexes, we lose our Section 8 housing, we lose hotels that FEMA would allow us to use for temporary housing. So FEMA had to come in and provide temporary housing in Calcasieu at that time. Then Hurricane Ida hits our parish last year, between us and Lafourche and all the rest of the parishes. We have another housing issue, same issues. Apartment complexes are damaged. Section 8 housing is not available. Major hotels are closed. We still have hotels closed in Terrebonne Parish. So what are we going to do? I got 10,000 residents or homes that are damaged. Multiply that by a factor of 3, I'm looking at about 30,000 people looking for temporary housing. We narrowed that number down. At the present time, we have 3,000 temporary trailers or modular home units. Actually, in the state, we have 8,000. 3,000 are from FEMA. The other 5,000 are through our state program, which is called the Ida Sheltering Program, which gladly FEMA allowed the state to provide the temporary housing for these residents. There are trailers, travel trailers that the state has put out, and FEMA has allowed us to use the modular mobile homes. But I will say this, if it would not be for the state program that FEMA has approved to allow the state to allow the purchase of these travel trailers and to put them in certain places, I would only have in my parish 1,000 FEMA trailers, okay? Whereas right now I have over 3,000 trailers between the FEMA program and the Ida program. One of the things we need to look at as a parish, county, state, and federal government is how do we speed up this temporary housing? So the first Ida trailer was put in 4 weeks after the storm. So we have residents living in cars and tents and literally using cordboard to fix their homes so that they would have some type of shelter and tarps. And they had to wait 4 weeks in order to get some type of temporary housing. So we need to find a process to speed that up. That is a major issue. It took approximately 6 to 8 weeks before I had the first FEMA modular mobile home in our parish to accommodate our residents. So that has been a real difficult issue, and we need to find a way to speed that process up and not have to go through all the, I'm going to say, bureaucracy on getting these places approved to where we can put group sites to house our residents. That was pretty much one of our major concerns. The other issues we've had is our electrical grid. We need to, as a country, we need to strengthen our electrical grid. Today, 2 years after Hurricane Laura, we still have a parish in Louisiana that is operating off of generators. Okay, 2 years later, because of the condition of the electrical grid. So I think we need to look at that. It took 30 days to get electricity back in Terrebonne Parish, which I thought was a tremendous feat to get us up and running. But we still need some help with that in improving that structure so that we're not out that many days. You also have to remember the more days we're out of electricity, the more that people are looking for temporary housing because they don't have the comforts of home anymore. Communications. We live and die with a cell phone in our hands every day, and that is what the public wants to communicate with. We need to find a way to make sure that we can establish communications after these storms quickly, not only just for first responders, but the general public, because that is the way they are receiving information today. Ken Graham mentioned all the social media aspects and what they're working on. That is how the public is getting their information. So we had, we were lucky to have the FirstNet group through AT&T come in, establish communications for us within 72 hours, but that's mostly for first responders. The public was still out on the general tower system, which some of those towers were out, so not everybody had that communication. And then Verizon and the other manufacturers came in and started raising their towers for us to have communication. And after, I would say, probably 5 to 6 days, people were starting to be able to use their cell phones for communication and get the information that they needed during the storm and what was available to them. So there are a lot of issues that we're working on now. We have, just in my parish only, I have 9,000 residents in travel trailers. And unfortunately, under that state program, and we're working with FEMA right now, the majority of those travel trailers are not anchored down. So with those 9,000 residents, I will have to do an evacuation of those 9,000 residents that are in those travel trailers, I guess I shouldn't say just, but for a tropical storm. I will have to evacuate those people. Those trailers will not maintain a 60 to 70 mile an hour wind. So that's the issues that we're working on now, trying to fix those. It is almost like evacuating a small city. I only have 109,000 residents in Terrebonne Parish, so 10% of my population will have to be forced to evacuate, and I will have to be forced to provide a shelter for 10% of my population.
Thank you, Earl. Well, Kevin, top that.
Yeah. How do you top that? So I'm not even going to attempt to. One of the things that, as we talk about the conference this week, is Stronger Together. I decided to, on my opening, if you will, talk more about the Stronger Together. And what are some things that we're doing right now to get that done? One of the things that we've changed at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, listen at me, at the Florida Division of Emergency Management, is we have actually gone out and changed our mission statement to coordinate, collaborate, and communicate with our stakeholders for resilient Florida. We're really trying to change that concept, and we're doing that together, right? We have got to stop doing, core our function is respond to, recover from, prepare for, mitigate against disasters, okay? But how do you do those things? Those are core mission areas, core functions that we must do. We believe it's going to be, in the future, coordinate, collaborate, communicate with our stakeholders so that we can do better at that. As we talk about communicate, collaborate, coordinate, it falls together with Stronger Together. That's got to start first at the FEMA state, local level. And we're already seeing that partnership. As you're going to hear the administrator speak here in a few minutes, I have a very good relationship with my regional administrator, Gracia Chick, who is somewhere over in this general area, and I've had a very good relationship with the administrator over the last year. In fact, about a year ago, give or take, is when I first met her, and shared some ideas, shared some concepts. And again, stronger together. Let's take that now and roll that down to bringing in local level. Some of the things that we're doing right now. I'll give you a couple examples of really good partnerships at the FEMA, state, and local level. Coming up next month, Surfside incident. I'm going to use a Congresswoman's statement. There was no light in between federal, state, and local government. When the administrator got there, we were sitting at the same, she was here, I was here, the local EM director, Charles Sorrell, was here. And we were working together in concert to solve problems. I've been already told, don't say it, but caveat it. This will probably never happen again. A expedited project worksheet obligated from the federal government down to the state government, local government, in 8 hours and 25 minutes. Never happened before. But again, that is that collaborative communication between federal, state, and local government working together for that common cause, if you will. Talk a little bit about FROC. There's been a lot of classes this week on Florida's recovery obligation calculation and how we're working together at the federal, state, and local level of how do we make recovery more standardized. If we could get it standardized to where the CRC and us are not going back and forth because they can't find our data, and we have a standardized methodology of how we put that data into a form, it's easier for them to find it, easier for them to obligate it. We start to recover faster. Again, stronger together, working together. Hurricane Michael recovery. I go back to February with the administrator and going through some of that stuff on the ground. She was on the ground. She saw some things. Her and I talked with the local fire chief. She made some decisions. She came back. She went to the NEMA conference, National Hurricane Conference, and she may talk about this, so I'm not going to steal a lot of her thunder. But came out with some common sense approaches of how to do things in the future between the CRC and the federal coordinating officers and things of that nature. Again, stronger together, working together to solve problems. Get away from FEMA for just a second. I go to my friend, Ken Graham. Stronger together, National Hurricane Center, National Weather Service local offices, state meteorology, storm surge forecasts, river forecasts. Again, all of those people coming together, being stronger together, and fostering and forging those relationships in blue sky time so that we're better when we come together for our locals to respond to that. Within the Division of Emergency Management, making sure that we're stronger together internally. Historically, if you go back decades, I've been in emergency management now since 2006. But I go to my predecessors, the Bob Laves of the world and whatnot. Well, not happy retirement, buddy. But I hear the individuals have been doing this 20, 25, 30 years. And it was like, man, the division is just so siloed. This bureau doesn't talk to that bureau, doesn't talk to that bureau. We just don't do those things. We're becoming stronger together inside our division. Why? So that we can communicate, collaborate, and coordinate with everyone for the local development of EM programs and local response, local recovery from hurricanes and other disasters for that matter. Again, we talked a little bit about logistics, or you mentioned it in your opening. Logistics is a challenge right now. Supply chain issues, getting things to market, it is a huge issue. Housing issues, huge issues. We're right now trying to figure out what's that next thing where we don't have that we're working on for hurricane season, right? Making sure we have enough food, we have enough water, we have enough supplies to respond to whatever may come. But again, those are challenges. There's, just flip on any news station today, and you're going to see problematic challenges with certain food elements and certain commodities. that are going to take us into hurricane season. We're already working those issues, and our logistics vendors are telling us, look, we can't find it in the market. We don't know where we're going to get it from. But again, what do we start thinking now? Working collaboratively between local, state, federal government to start identifying what we can find out there. So we're really, I wanted to come back to that emphasis of stronger together, right? And really, really tie it back to some things that we're doing locally, some things we're doing statewide, some things that we're doing with our federal partners and local partners. We got, I go back to FROC. We've got, I think, and I don't have my project manager, I can't see her, but I think we got some 20-something jurisdictions now, cities, large cities, large counties, small counties, sheriff's agencies that are all willing to pilot this year the Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation Form Standardization projects to help us get that good data in so that we can start digesting that and see how we're going to roll it out for a June 1, 2023 execution date. So we're looking forward to that. Those are just some of the things we're working on. I know you got quite a few questions there that we're going to answer, so but I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everybody for allowing me to be here today.
Well, thank you, Governor. Again, I think that we're all in this together, and I think that's, again, part of our theme, that we're all part of that solution. So,
right.
So thank you very much. Earl, one of the questions that I was going through my mind as you were talking about getting smacked several times, and was, of course, the emergency manager in me was like, what was obviously sheltering. And again, sheltering is always a major undertaking for any emergency management agency, and it's when you talk to me about your entire parish is 109,000 people, and I know what the resource it takes to shelter a tenth of your population, and it's no easy task. So let me just ask, and then throw in, something like a little pesky global pandemic, and multiple hurricanes, I should say. So let's just kind of a hypothetical. If you could have, what would you change in your sheltering process or strategies or processes that you used in 2020 and 2021? You mentioned that we use non-congregate sheltering and hotels, but more or less. Kevin, you talked about, and I really liked some of your concepts about bridging, federal, state, local, through communication, collaboration, coordination. As I mentioned earlier this morning, one of the problems with a global pandemic was that, many of the strategies that we implemented, the solutions were distancing. And and obviously, I think you even mentioned that sometimes we had that tendency to silo ourselves, kind of thing. Can you talk just briefly a little bit about how the state, both particularly state and local entities, work to kind of break down some of those silos and maybe implement some of that, the 3 C's?
Yeah, so, specifically during the pandemic, our coordination calls, 1115 coordination calls really became key. They're key to everything we do in any disaster cycle, but they really became key there, and finding out what the actual needs were. Problem was, all 67 counties had needs, right? And to put it in perspective, we had 17,000 plus missions for COVID-19. Put that in perspective. Our largest Cat 5 hurricane, Michael, to date, and I'm going to probably mess this number up, but it was below 10,000. I'll just say it was below 10,000. I think it was in the 7,500 range, but more than twice the number of missions that we had. So communication, coordination became, and collaboration. Actually, collaboration was probably the first thing we did. Is when supplies were very, very low, how were we going to collaborate? Where was the greatest need? Could you go down to one glove? Could you go down to, how are we going to get this done and skin this thing? But it was very, very crucial to collaborate on how we were going to work together at the local, state, and federal level, working with our hospitals, ALFs, nursing homes, things of that nature, and then communicate what we're going to do, and then coordinate that execution, right? So those are some of the things that we did. We had to, it was intensive. 12, 16 hours a day on trying to get some of that stuff done. Lots of calls. We did work with our, as we said on the 1115 calls, but we had hospital calls, we had nursing home calls, we had skilled nursing facility calls, we had kidney dialysis calls. But again, it was all about trying to communicate and really find out what the need was. When was going to be your break point? Is it today, or is it 5 days from now? Because we, as you well know, we had hospitals and ALFs, nursing homes, funeral homes it was a today issue, it's a right now issue. So we just have to do a lot more of that in the future as we come out of COVID. I think that was one of the better things that we learned, is communicating with the whole community, everybody across the board.
Thank you. Earl, let me ask a question about on the lines of recovery. You mentioned about the 9,000 people in travel trailers and that many people were in non-congregate sheltering, which was hotels, from months on end, kind of thing. From a recovery standpoint, can you talk just briefly about the mental health issues that you might have seen or are seeing in this the constant or the repetitive sheltering, the impact that these have had on, I can only imagine what it would be like being in a hotel for, I can't imagine more than a week, let alone months, and what this might have on the community as a whole.
It has taken a toll on the mental health of a lot of our residents in Louisiana. So we all went through 2 years of COVID. Then we go through, two major hurricane incidents in the state, along with the smaller hurricanes, and all the other issues that residents have to deal with on a daily basis. It has taken a toll. Just like everyone else across the country, we have seen, an increase in drug use. We have seen a slight increase of domestic violence issues. Try living in a 12 square foot trailer with your family for for days on end. And so there have been some issues, but I will have to say that the state has provided mental health services to residents that need help. We've also increased the non-governmental organizations that have come in to offer mental health services. The issue with mental health, though, is that somebody's not going to walk up to you and start talking about your issues. You have to go door to door. You have to be visible in those small communities, either set up a little trailer or a little site that people can just say, well, maybe I need to go talk to somebody today. And we've seen that in our communities. So it has taken a toll, and the thing I worry about the most is, what about this year? When hurricane season starts June 1st, that first word that they're going to hear is that there is a system out in the Gulf or in the Atlantic. It's going to cause a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. And so, like I said, we have mental health people out in the field trying to help people with those issues. But I'm going to repeat what Kevin says. I hope we have another 7 to 8 years before we have another storm impact our area, because we have lots of issues. I mean, rebuilding for these people is a lot of anxiety. Anything, destroyed more than 50% has to be rebuilt back to code. Most of us live at either 0 to 1 sea level. Most people have to raise their houses 10 or 12 feet. And then we're faced with the new flood insurance rates on all of these new structures. So it is a very trying time for a lot of people who have damaged homes at this time.
Kevin, a quick last question, just the last few minutes here. Just if you can, just briefly, I know this is probably a half-hour discussion here, but you were talking about logistics, and again, in the midst of a global pandemic, what resource management and supply chain issues did you encounter from a state perspective as they relate to the pandemic?
Well, I mean, what I would say is it went from being, locally sourced or state sourced, region sourced to internationally sourced, right? I remember being on the tarmac at Tallahassee Regional Airport, or Tallahassee International Airport, unloading 2 net jets in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. in the morning of test kits, right? And those came straight from China via Alaska straight to Tallahassee. So I think for us, logistics, and I think this is the way it's going to be in this next hurricane season as well, maybe even for a couple of seasons as we go forward, and that is supply chain is now an international issue. It is not, it's not me going to, in essence, FEMA Region 4 and FEMA Region 4 pulling it out of warehouse. It may be coming from multiple FEMA warehouses across the country. It may be coming from their vendors, straight from their vendors to us. It may be coming from out of the country straight to us. So I think what I would say is pertinent to working together and making sure that we're ready for this season based on what we learned out of the pandemic, again, which was international supply chain issues, is if you need the resource, let us know now. One of the things that I've tried to do over the last year is go around and see every single county EM director in their county. I'm 9 short right now. But the first thing I asked them is, I said, what is it that you're going to need from the state? Is there some oddity that you're going to need? I got everything from I need water, I need people, I need oxygen. How do we get those things done? And I want to know about them today so that I know if I go, as one of my very good friends, Ed McCrane, says, I need oxygen, Kevin. That's my number one thing. I want to be working on oxygen today. Dan Summers in Collier County, I need the ambulance contract. I want to make sure we've got that today. So there's things that I think we can work on today that will help us respond just in time. But at the same time, earlier is better. Absolutely, earlier is better to let us know what those problems are going to be and that you're facing, so that as soon as we activate or as we start to spin up, we can start spinning up those resources from wherever they're going to come from. But it's going to be challenging. We see it right now. We see it right now with, the hot topic right now is baby formula. And, that's going to be an international issue most likely, right? It's certainly a nationwide issue, but it's probably going to become an international issue.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, I thank you, gentlemen, both for being part of this. I apologize that we couldn't go on longer. I think we could go on for another hour, I'm sure. But because of time, I want to have the administrator get up here and provide her her perspective on the last couple of seasons and looking forward. I apologize, I have to call an end to this, but I thank you very much. First of all, our hearts go out to you, Earl, and your entire team for the last couple of seasons. Keep up the good work. You've done a really great job. And again, thank you, Kevin, for all of your support. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Everybody, please, a quick round of applause for these gentlemen. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Again, thank you, gentlemen, very much appreciate it. Our final speaker this morning is another friend and colleague of ours, Ms. Deanne Criswell, the Administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Administrator Criswell was unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate in April of 2021 as the first woman confirmed to serve as FEMA Administrator, where she leads the nation's efforts in helping people before, during, and after disasters. She brings with her extensive career in emergency management with over 27 years of experience at all levels of government and the private sector. Prior to her appointment, Administrator Criswell served as the Commissioner of the New York City Emergency Management Department from 2019 to 2021, where she was responsible for coordinating citywide emergency planning and response for all emergencies. Administrator Criswell began her career in emergency management in Aurora, Colorado, where she led strategic change in the city's emergency management and disaster planning. She previously served at FEMA as the leader of one of FEMA's national IMAT teams and as a federal coordinating officer. She spent 2 years as an executive in private sector and has proudly served 21 years in the Colorado Air National Guard and is a veteran of 2 overseas tours. Administrator Criswell graduated from Colorado State University and received her MPA from the University of Colorado at Denver. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce to you a friend of ours, Administrator Deanne Criswell.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate that. Well, good morning, everybody. We've been up here for a while. Do we need to take a quick stretch? Put your hands over your head, make sure that we're good before lunch. All right. Well, it's really great to be here today. I'm excited that we're able to do this in person. Would really like to thank and recognize Mayor Weinroth and County Administrator Baker for your hospitality and hosting this excellent event. These are the types of opportunities that we need so our profession can continue to come together, so we can continue to learn from each other, and we can continue to advance the profession in the way that we are going to impact the people in our communities. You know, I'd like to also recognize the speakers that came right before me. Ken, you and I have been speaking at many of these things, and I continue to learn at each one of them. You know, you bring up the same point sometimes, but in a different way that just every time I learn something different. And so I hope everybody in this room really took to heart some of the things that Ken brought up, because they do make a difference in how we're able to plan and protect our communities. I'd also like to talk about the 2 speakers that you just heard from. So Director Guthrie, you know, I certainly appreciate your partnership. If there's one thing that we did see, and when we talk about stronger together, when we were together during the Surfside collapse, is that when there is a will, there is a way for us to come together as federal, state, and local emergency managers to find a way to meet the specific and unique needs of those survivors. And Surfside was one of those instances. Very specific, very unique needs, not something that we would normally support at FEMA in the way that we did, but we recognized the need, and Kevin and your team was excellent in working with us to try to find a way to do that. And Director Hughes, you talk about the non-congregate sheltering program and the fact that we allowed it to happen. What I would say is you took on an immense responsibility in implementing it too. If it wasn't for that partnership, if it wasn't for you willing to do it, not just us authorizing it, we would have never been as successful as we were. We're learning a lot from that, right? It takes us a long time to get those trailers out there. You guys did it so fast, and so we're taking a hard look at that now. How can we continue to build on the success that Louisiana experienced after Hurricane Ida? So with that, today I'm going to talk about a principle which really serves the difference between risk and security, between fragility and resiliency, and sometimes even between life and death. It's a principle that has often failed to make the headlines, but it is finally emerging, I think, as something that is front and center. This is a principle that is more important than ever, especially as you heard some of the data from Ken Graham. So in these final days leading up to hurricane season, this principle of individual preparedness. We know that the best disasters are the ones that we can prevent from occurring, and that what happens before a disaster strikes is far more important than how we respond. Yet with every recovering community that I visit, and I have tried to visit as many as I can in my first year, I continue to hear from disaster survivors, "I just didn't expect it to happen here. I didn't think that it would be as bad as it is. I thought I would have more time to be able to evacuate and get my family to safety." So where's the disconnect? We can continue to promote and provide all of the free and accessible risk information to encourage individual preparedness within our communities. We can continue to plan. We can continue to train and exercise with both our community and our emergency management partners. And we can continue to build more capacity and interoperability to bolster communications, to bolster technology, and to sustain a strong emergency management footprint within our communities. But we're just never going to be successful without the buy-in of our communities, without the buy-in of the residents in those communities that we have all been charged to protect. So we must remember that disaster preparedness does not fall squarely on the shoulders of government alone. It does not fall squarely on just our community partners. It requires all of us working together, becoming stronger together. We are facing inherently complex subject matter of human behavior, a systemic issue of people believing that they are immune from disasters. So in bold terms, what I think that we are facing right now could be an epidemic of complacency. So this may stem from the record number of disasters that you heard about earlier today that we have endured year after year. Or it could be the 24/7 news cycle that has normalized emergencies, normalized the disasters that we're experiencing. Or perhaps it could be because we are charged to protect so many other challenges in our lives. Those that we are charged to protect have so many other challenges that they are facing in their lives, that they lack the temporal, they lack the emotional, or they lack the financial capacity to prepare for these events. So now we may not be able to control human behavior, and I'm very excited to continue to hear about how Ken is really working on the social science part of this. But it is in our control to help understand it, to understand human behavior and incorporate it into how we help our communities prepare for, respond, and how we communicate to them. So regardless of the influencing factor, the time is now. Time is now to help compel people to act. Because if we have learned anything in recent years, it is that disasters know no boundaries, or they don't respect your timeline. They are not red, they are not blue. They are going to affect whoever they want to affect. So how are we going to come together as an emergency management community and relay this urgency to act to our citizens? Well, I think that we can start by drawing attention to the data. A few weeks ago, the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction released a climate report that said if current trends continue, the world will go from around 400 disasters per year that we saw in 2015 to an estimated 560 disasters per year by 2030. It's incredible growth. I recently had the opportunity to meet with Mamie Mitsutori. She is the head of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. We talked about the impact that climate change is having on our communities globally. We talked about the struggles that other international communities are having, getting their citizens, getting their residents to prepare so they can act. There's an International Day of Disaster Risk Reduction, and this year their theme is early warning, early action. And I committed to her that we at FEMA would continue to expand on that theme, that we would help amplify that message, because as we're seeing, these storms are intensifying more rapidly, giving us less time to warn our citizens to get out of harm's way. So we are continuing to see these increases here at home. According to NOAA, and you heard a little bit of this already, 2021 showed us that since 1980, the U.S. had sustained 285 separate billion-dollar disasters, and that climate disasters have totaled over $1.8 trillion in total damages. The leading cause of this loss? Tropical cyclones. And Florida knows this well. Irma, Michael, Andrew, these three hurricanes alone caused the state $95 billion in damage. Yet with every record that we break, we are increasingly, I feel, becoming more numb to the significance of these dollar amounts. So let's picture this. Let's just kind of relate this to something that maybe will help us understand it. In today's dollars, the cost to build Disney's Epcot Center was a mere $1.4 billion. That means that the total losses from Irma, Michael, and Andrew is the equivalent to building Epcot 100 times over. That's astonishing, and it's simply not going to be sustainable for us. So now is the time, today, now is the time here to be forward-leaning, innovative, and aggressive in helping to mitigate these future threats. That's why we are investing more money than we have ever in helping to reduce the impacts. We've invested more than $20 billion through pre- and post-disaster mitigation over the last 32 years, and mitigation funding continues to be a priority for this administration. Now, I previously spoke just a little bit ago about the need to elevate the science, to use the data, and to help use this to better understand human behavior. So let's talk about that a little. At FEMA, our priority is to understand what drives preparedness actions, what drives the attitudes, what drives people to motivate them to understand how American households are dealing with disasters. We do this through our National Household Survey. Last year, we surveyed over 7,000 people and focused on 4 key influencers of disaster preparedness. These are awareness, disaster experience, preparedness efficacy, and risk perception. And what we found was really intriguing. A few of the findings. In 2021, 92% of the respondents had read, seen, or heard disaster preparedness information in the past year. So that's quite a bit. We're reaching a lot of people. This is the highest level of awareness ever recorded in the survey, up 47% from 2020. Over 50% of the respondents had a personal or family experience with disaster impacts. This was up 10% from the previous 4 years. So more people are experiencing disasters. Yet only 40% 40%, even though that many had read, seen, or heard, only 40% of the public actually feels confident in their ability to be prepared. That's down 7% from 2020 and the lowest it has been in the previous 4 years. We have a lot of work ahead of us to make sure that we are reaching people so they can understand what their risk is and how they can protect their family. We know that the awareness levels of preparedness and disaster experiences are high. I've just read those numbers. But that level of preparedness, of that personal confidence, continues to decrease. So this tells me that we must better explore ways to make preparing for disasters easier, but also more relatable to the individual. So this could mean maybe that we share success stories and we aggressively promote accessible, low-cost, step-by-step methods of preparedness, outreach, and training. Perhaps this means that we just help people truly understand what their risk is and how they can better protect their families. Maybe it means that we need to reach people where they're at in the way that they receive information. Last year, during our Ready campaign, we did our first culturally competent preparedness message to reach the Latino community. We learned that the Latino community was not resonating with the information that we were providing. So we brought in subject matter experts to create a campaign that they would relate to. We had great success. I think we need to continue to focus on how are we relating to the people we're talking to? How do we improve that level of acceptance so they want to take action? So above all else, reaching success and becoming a better prepared nation starts with us. We know the needs, we know the vulnerabilities of our communities. So let's work to meet them where they are at and help them in a way that they understand. And as we quickly approach hurricane season, enabling people to make informed decisions is now more important than ever. So this starts by communicating in clear, concise, and effective ways. So the National Weather Service is doing this. For example, they're doing this through impact-based warnings. The intent is to communicate not just what the weather will be, but what the weather will do at a localized level. You are in a life-threatening situation. Mobile homes will be destroyed. Flying debris may be deadly. And even that conditions are unsurvivable. These are terms that can be seen now scrolling on the screens of televisions in the final hours before a storm hits. You may have seen these. You may have been a recipient of this yourself. Sadly, getting these warnings to those who need them most, though, continues to persist. Digital inequalities in underserved communities can be seen as a barrier between life-saving information and the people in harm's way. Ken talked about the different ways to reach individuals, about his kids. We've talked about doing the TikTok video together, Ken. I'm still waiting to do that. And while misinformation and conflicting messages are causing confusion, they are enabling inaction. So we have to work on this. What is the fix for this? It's not a simple solution at all. It does not lie with one agency. It does not lie with one person. It lies within each of us working together, stronger together, to find better ways to help our communities be better prepared. From national to local meteorological, hydrological, emergency management, and community partners, we must continue to work together to better engage our most at-risk communities. So as I close, I'd like to honor this year's theme of Stronger Together by reminding all of us that our capacity to prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters is exponentially increased when our relationships are at their strongest. We know that our mission is straightforward, but our execution is complicated. Our world is very dynamic, it's very complex, and we know that there are new threats on the horizon, and the potential consequences that we are going to face continue to increase. But FEMA is just one part of this team. To face the future, we need our partners across government and community with us each step of the way. In the last 2 years, or if the last 2 years of battling the COVID-19 pandemic and responding to an influx of disasters has taught us anything, it is that we are stronger together. I am proud and humbled to be part of this profession. I thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk with all of you again today, and I wish you all the best in this hurricane season. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Criswell. That was excellent indeed. Working together, focusing on the future definitely makes us more effective and stronger as an entire group. This concludes our general session. I will get you out of here early. I want to thank each of our presenters and speakers for their time, effort, and generous support of the Governor's Hurricane Conference. Before we leave, I just have a couple of housekeeping issues. First, feedback from attendees has always been an important part of planning for future Governor Hurricane Conference sessions. And this year again, we are conducting an online survey for you to share your suggestions and constructive criticism. You can access the survey on your mobile device at the link shown on the screen, and this link is also in our mobile app. Just go to the Surveys, Evaluations, Certificates button. Please complete the survey at the end of your conference experience so that we can get your complete evaluation of the conference. This year, we will no longer be using our traditional paper evaluation forms for you to provide us that specific feedback and for training sessions or workshops. Instead, those sessions evaluations can be made through our mobile app by clicking on the specific session, scrolling down to the bottom, and then clicking on the session evaluation form link. You can also submit an evaluation of each instructor or speaker by clicking on their name. Please complete your evaluations as soon after the session as possible. The app will close for evaluation input on May 31st. Personalized certificates of attendance for the training sessions should have been distributed to you at the end of each training session or by other arrangements announced by the lead instructor during the actual training session. If you took a G course this week, the Governor's Hurricane Conference certificate that you received can be uploaded into CertTrack and will be accepted by the Florida Division of Emergency Management as an official certificate of attendance for that course. Certificates of attendance are also accepted by the Florida Emergency Preparedness Association for FPEM, FAEM, FEMV, and FEPA healthcare certifications and recertifications. Overall conference certificates can be picked up at the registration desk just outside Exhibit Hall on the first level beginning tomorrow afternoon. Remember that these certificates cannot be mailed. If you have any questions or need any assistance at any time during the conference, please stop by the registration desk, and our conference volunteers will be very happy to help you in any way. And remember, again, that tomorrow at 11:45, the awards luncheon will be held up here in the grand ballroom, this room, and I strongly encourage you to attend, as we will recognize those who have made outstanding contributions or accomplishments in the field of hurricane preparedness, response, recovery, or mitigation in the state of Florida. The luncheon is included in your full conference registration, so please join us. And finally, let me remind you that training sessions will continue at 1:35 p.m. today. Now, I would like to invite all registered conference participants to join us downstairs in the exhibit hall to visit our exhibits and displays and thank them for their support for the conference, and then join us for lunch. Thank you again for attending the conference. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great week. Be safe and be well. Thank you.